NRSNG podcast, episode number 230. What's going on today? I am talking with Carrie Madormo, who is a nurse and a medical writer. Recently, she's been able to quit her bedside job and is now working as a medical writer full-time. She's also created resources out there to help nurses and moms learn how to work from home and really make a living doing that. So this is a really cool episode. It's going to kind of introduce you to an avenue in nursing that a lot of people don't realize is there or don't realize can actually make a reliable income. So I'm excited for this episode. Make sure you listen to that. Carrie also mentions a couple different cheat sheets and things that she has on her website if you're interested in pursuing this path in nursing. Hey, and if you guys aren't on our Friday freebie email list, make sure you head to nrsng.com/freebies. nrsng.com/freebies, and every Friday we mail you out a free PDF download that you can have and you can use on the floor. Welcome to the show today, guys. Today I'm here with Carrie Madormo, who is a nurse, a health writer, and she also has a service where she's helping moms and nurses kind of learn how to start working from home and that it's actually possible. So thanks for coming on, Carrie.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. We actually connected probably a month and a half ago or so, and then we weren't able to record when we wanted to because both of us work from home. And
because we work from home.
Exactly. And realized we had scheduled our chat on Martin Luther King Day, and both of our kids were running around crazy. So it's like a blessing and a curse to work at home sometimes, I think.
Exactly. I'm always trying to find the balance.
Exactly. So tell us just a little bit about your career path, maybe going into nursing and then where you are today.
Sure. So I have been a nurse for about 10 years and always worked in pediatrics. I started in pediatric oncology and then moved to more outpatient role. And have my master's in public health. So after that, started doing more travel health. And then about 4 years ago, when I became a mom, decided to totally take a left turn, and that I realized I wanted to be home. I always thought I would work outside the home full time. But after doing work and daycare and grad school, I just wanted to find a way to kind of schedule my work around my life as opposed to the other way around. And so I just started Googling ways that nurses can work from home and landed on medical writing and just really threw all my efforts into that. And so it's been about 4 years now, and I've built it up to where last year I was able to leave my nursing job since the writing income has more than replaced that.
So that's really cool. And talk maybe about that. You've been working on it for a couple of years now. And
yeah.
Let's say, you got that very first paycheck from a medical writing gig. Do you remember what that paid or what that felt like?
Yeah. So I think it was I think my first article was like $25, and I was thrilled with that, just because it showed me that it was possible. Mm-hmm. And then, after that, you can kind of build up from there. I started out when I had no experience. No editor will hire you without samples. So sure. I had started a blog to have samples, and then I also volunteered my services to a local charity. Which I think was just like the best way to get started, because I was helping this charity. I learned how to write grants, how to write copy. They kind of taught me as I went. And then all of a sudden I had these published samples on this very legitimate website, and that helped me kind of offer my services for pay after that.
Well, that's cool. You started, your first paycheck was less than you would have made in an hour of nursing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it took me so long to get to that point, so thinking I could have just picked up an extra day at the hospital and made so much more.
And I think I think a lot of nurses I work with, and you as well, probably they all want ways to make extra cash, or
yes.
Maybe they get a little tired of the floor and they want to cut back. But a lot of people would see that $25 and say exactly what you and I just said. Well, I could have just worked an hour and made way more than this. But
yes,
what helped you kind of see that, like, okay, there's a way to build from here?
I think I've always been good at envisioning the future. I'm more of a big picture person. I know exactly where I want to go, but the little day-to-day details are more challenging for me. So I always had a very clear picture of waking up when it's snowing outside and just being able to sit with my hot coffee and write from home and not be doing the crazy daycare morning thing. So I definitely had like a strong drive to get there. And I found that every time I took a step forward, the next step would kind of present itself to me. I think, as you move forward, you don't know until you try. And so I could have Googled this forever, but if I just like put myself out there a little bit, then I would meet someone who could help me get to the next level. It was just taking one step forward every day, kind of started to snowball.
Well, for sure. And at the time you started doing this, was your spouse supportive or?
He was. I mean, so we had a new baby. I was in grad school and I was working, so we had a lot going on. And so he really picked up the slack where he was doing pretty much all the cooking and everything like that. And so he definitely did not, my husband's a physical therapist.
Okay.
And he didn't see my vision. Like, he just didn't understand, like, how could you ever work from home? Like, you're a nurse. But he always believed in me. So I think even though he didn't totally get it, he was just like, all right, like, if you think this is going to work, let's try it. And now he's writing himself because he's seen how successful it is.
So that's one thing because my wife works in healthcare too, and so she kind of understood maybe a little bit of the vision I had with NRSNG too. And one of the great things about nursing, and maybe physical therapy is the same way too, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, but I was able to go I did 4 days a week, went to 3 days a week, went to 2 days every other week, went to 2 days, and slowly scaled back to where there was never a point I was making less money,
Yes, and that was so helpful. And I never had to decide before I was ready, like, do I have to totally cut off nursing and just do this and just hustle when I'm not ready? Like, I cut back until I was doing about 3 days a month before I eventually left.
I think that's where I was. I think I got back down to 2 or 3 days a month as well.
Yeah.
And we talked about this as well, like making that final leap of like not being on the floor. It's hard. Like, it almost feels like you're selling or giving away your child or something, because like it's nursing, and like you don't want to get off the floor thing, but at the same time, like we reach so many more people this way,
Yes. And by the time I was ready to leave, I had been a nurse for 10 years, which is short in terms of like how long nurses stay in the field, but it's still, at 10 years, you're experienced and you're a valuable resource on the floor. So I definitely felt kind of a pull to stay, and it was hard. But then on my last day, almost every nurse came up to me and said, I wish I could do that. I've been thinking about doing that. And so I think we're all going through these same struggles, but maybe not everybody says it or tries to do something different.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. On your blog, the Healthy, WAHM, healthyworkathomemom.com, you do have a download on there that people can get for free. It's at the very bottom of the homepage. And on there you have kind of the steps almost that people need to take. Kind of talk about that and maybe give us a quick, what does somebody need to do first if they're thinking about this?
So on my checklist, I start a year out from when you want to be able to leave your job. And so I think that sounds like a long time. Like, when I was ready to leave, I was like, I can't wait a year. But you could always be sooner, but at least like start with a plan. And my first tip is to just set the date. Set the date of your last day of work. And I think that's scary for people. It was for me, because immediately it was like, well, what if I can't at that point? That would be so heartbreaking to get to this date and then it doesn't mean anything. But I think you have to know like where you're going. So when I set the date, I set it for December 16th, 2016. And I wrote that date everywhere. It was all over my planner. It was my password at work. So every time, like when I had a hard day at work, I just all day long typed in December 16th.
Log in the computer,
Yes. So I knew where I was going. And so I think that kept me mindful of it, and it kept me accountable. Like, I was always reminded that I gotta like move forward. I have to do something every day to get there.
And that's such a great idea. I mean, it seems like you have a lot more focus maybe than I do. Like, I have this big vision, but like focusing on that is really hard for me. And I think, your checklist will be really helpful to a lot of people. And on this checklist, do you give resources of where people can start with the medical writing, or where would you suggest somebody start? Like, what's the first place to look for this?
I think the best place to look is just start in your own backyard. Like, I write articles for the like monthly website that the hospital I worked at puts out. And so I think people have so many contacts, but you don't even realize it. So I would start with just emailing like the head of marketing at your current hospital, at any hospital you've ever worked as a nurse, and then also any area hospitals. They all need writers for their website, for any marketing materials, and it's really helpful to have a nurse because people automatically trust a nurse and like a nurse, and it's really valuable for the hospital as well. So I would start with just kind of looking at your specialty and the areas where you've worked.
You know, what a great idea. I honestly never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
And every hospital does have a blog, and someone has to write that, right?
And now they all have to have Facebook pages. Like, they're all just trying to keep up. And so if they have somebody who not only can write, but they actually know what it's like to serve patients one-on-one and to be on the floor, like, that's really valuable.
And you know, like, the vision of that hospital, like, you know, the mission, the vision, the language, and what a great idea.
You can kind of speak their language.
So you would just kind of go up to the marketing department and be like, hey, I want to write a little bit here.
Yeah. I just sent an email to I think I like looked up who it was on LinkedIn and then, you know, found his email and sent it, and a week or so later I got an email back, and now that is my highest paying client. That
is so cool. What a good idea.
Yeah.
I just never would have thought of that. So now on your healthy WHM, healthy work at home mom as well.
Yeah.
You do have a couple of resources for people aside from that. What are some of the other resources you offer and things you can help people with?
So I just launched a private Facebook group as kind of a support system for, it's targeted towards mothers, but you don't have to be a work-at-home mom. And so that's called the Sisterhood of the Hustlin' Mamas. And so that is for women who want to kind of build up their home career. And then I also have a couple different free downloads. I have my, just like a one-page freelance writing guide about how I got started and the simple steps to take to start to get your first client.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And for these people that are maybe, because I know how it felt once and kind of like what you said too, like once I realized this is what I wanted to do, and I was kind of balancing both worlds, it got harder and harder to go to work.
Yes. Yes.
What can you offer to those people? What encouragement can you give them? And
yeah. So I spent like years in that kind of in between place of just being so ready to make the leap, but just not quite there yet. So I would say the first thing is I would get like so frustrated on my way to work and think like, oh, it's because this hasn't happened and my husband's not ready and I'm ready, and I would just like cut out all of that thinking, and the accountability like fell on me. I have the same amount of time in the day as a professional athlete, as Einstein, as anyone. So it's possible. And so it really has to just come down to that focus. So I used to go to work and like pretend that I was a full-time writer and I was just coming in to help out that day. Like that's what I would tell myself. Like, this is how it'll feel once I'm doing it. And I'm just like the pool nurse coming in to help out. So I would do that. And then also like setting my date really made a big difference. It was such a little thing, but I just like all of a sudden my mindset shifted and I knew like this date's coming, I better hurry. All of a sudden it didn't feel so far away. It felt like I've got stuff to do here.
I love that.
I think the other thing was like staying fully engaged at work. Like I would still volunteer for things, make sure I like made small talk with my coworkers. Like I just tried to be present wherever I was and not always thinking like, oh, I don't want to be here, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that there's so many opportunities for that at a hospital, and like, especially like I work night shifts, so you get really tight with those people, and and that really helped like just continuing to progress in my career, because I mean I had the goal and I wanted to be able to work from home and do this NRSNG as much as I could, but if that didn't pan out, you know, hospitals are small places. You don't want to be labeled as the lazy guy or the one that doesn't want to work, or that one nurse. You know, I don't want Carrie on our, you know.
Yes, or I have to hand off to this person.
Yes. And so keep giving 100% everywhere. Do you ever follow Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. A lot of what you're saying makes me think of a lot of what he says, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We all have the same amount of time in the day, and what are you doing with it? You know, because I want to be nice when I say this and stuff, but there would be nurses that I would work with who, you know, they'd give a med, come back out, get on their phone, look at Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
at the other side of it, I would have my ICU book open. I'd be studying. I'd be reading. And so essentially I was getting paid to take my CCRN,
Yes.
And
Yes.
we all have the same amount of time. And I think resources like your blog will give people that tool to be able to use their time more efficiently, Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think in the beginning, I just wasted a lot of time doubting myself or that this was even an attainable goal. Like I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know any nurses who worked from home. And so I would make a little progress and then almost self-sabotage, just thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. And so I hope that this blog kind of saves people all of that wasted time, because it is so possible. And the further I get, the more people I meet who are doing a huge range of things I never even knew were out there when I was working full time. And so I hope that is like the biggest outcome of the blog, is that just save you so much time of that like self-doubt time in the beginning. No,
that's awesome. I love that. I love that you're doing this, and I love that you're reaching out to so many people, because and especially in the nursing arena, there's so many people with so much experience and varied experience that there's a lot that needs to be taught, and there's so much you can do with this. Yes.
I love that nursing is just like a springboard. You could truly like go anywhere with this knowledge.
Absolutely.
Built up.
Now I wanted to ask you, what has writing and putting all of this knowledge in your head into words, has that taught you anything about patient education and patient communication?
Yeah, I think, having the nursing background definitely helps me in the writing department, like thinking, how would I talk to a patient when I'm writing? And then the other way around, it just reminds me of how much information is thrown at patients, like in their visits, and then how often they go home and like Google it. And so that's kind of where they might come across what I've written. And so I am really mindful of trying to stay like friendly and engaging while introducing these kind of advanced topics or complicated conditions and things like that. So it's just kind of like a constant balancing act. I was thinking about it when I just took my son to the dermatologist, and it was like just for eczema. The doctor mentioned, he does not have this. I know it's not this, but we had to think about tuberous sclerosis. And so immediately that is in my brain. That's all I'm thinking about. That's all I'm Googling, even though the doctor said that's not it. So I know that that's how people think. And, your health is like one of the most important parts of your life. And so I really take that seriously when I'm writing and try to kind of alleviate some of that stress.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because you really do have that kind of responsibility, I guess, as a social media nurse or a blogging nurse, is someone somewhere is going to find what you wrote. And what are they going to take away from that, Yeah,
I was just writing for an online magazine, and they assigned me the article, The Untold Truth of Vaccines. I was like, oh, God.
Thanks.
And so I had to write, like, all these unknown truths or secrets of vaccines. And my secrets were like, they save lives. Actually, these diseases are still around. So it's like this balance of like engaging topics that people will click on, but totally rooted in science and safety.
Oh, I'm glad that a nurse got that topic, though. That's good.
I know.
So I want to ask you, too, you mentioned your career was in pediatric oncology.
Yeah.
That to me, so I was actually just having this conversation with, I don't remember who it was with. It was with one of the guys that works with us, and I was like, so peds would be really hard for me because I have kids, it's too close to home, and he's like, oncology. I was like, oh yeah, pediatric oncology would be the worst. I don't even know what my question is, but like, how did you separate enough to be able to come home, be with your kids, and not be terrified all the time?
Yeah, so I actually did that right out of college. So I wasn't a mom yet. I don't know how the nurses who were parents did it. If I had to do it all over again, I would have gone to a more general floor first. I think as a new nurse, you're just working on like basic skills. And then on top of that, I had these like huge boundary issues to figure out, because these families are there every day for maybe a year. Like you are so close. And so to try to separate that was really hard. And so I eventually had to leave because of that. I went to an outpatient clinic just to kind of get a break and like get my bearings again, because it was so hard not to. I felt like I either had to be totally in it with the families and feel like so much suffering, or I felt like I was being cold if I was like protecting myself. So it's such a delicate balance. Like the nurses who do that forever, I have so much respect for.
And that's what, like, the pediatric and the oncology nurses I've met are generally, it seems to me, they're people that do it for decades, you know?
Yes,
and they just love it. And that was the hardest thing for me on the floor, was that separation. It got really, really hard for me because I work neuro ICU, and so you see just this traumatic death and stuff all the time, and it got really, really hard for me because you really start to care about a lot of these families, and I think that's good, but I had a hard time drawing that line, you know?
Yes, I just wanted to, especially once I became a mom, I wanted to know that I could come home from work and not be totally drained, and just like I needed somewhere where I still had something to give when I got home. Exactly.
And I think a lot of people do talk about the physical strain of nursing, but there's a real emotional drain of nursing, and I think it does. It got to the point where it's like, man, I don't know, like I don't even know anymore about anything.
And there's like those studies about like compassion fatigue, and the symptoms are like serious physical symptoms that you can develop just from this like stress on you all the time.
I was actually I just had an interview with Ashley Poffett, she's a blogging nurse who talks about falling back in love with nursing, and that's kind of what she talks about, is a lot of this compassion fatigue, and it brought me back to one of my first podcast episodes where I talked about compassion fatigue. It was right after a really terrible shift, and I mean, it shows that you care, but man, it really is hard.
And it's like, how can you protect yourself? First of all, because that's what will allow you to serve the patients the best, but it doesn't always feel like that right in the moment. Yes, I totally agree. Well, I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I'm really excited that you're bringing all this knowledge that you have to people. I can tell from your blog, from your passion, that you know what you're doing, and you clearly have a lot of passion for it and a lot of drive to help other nurses and other people get to here. What else would you want to share with people? What's parting advice? Where do you want people to find you online, etc.? I would say to definitely, if you're interested in starting to work from home, growing a home business, to come check out my blog. So it's healthywahm.com, the Healthy Work at Home Mom. And really my strongest message is just to know that this is possible. And even if you are starting at zero right now, life could look very different in a year. And so the best thing to do is just to take one step forward today. Send one email, look up medical writing, just one little action step every day snowballs, and it's unbelievable how fast it can happen. Awesome. And I just wanted one last question real quick as you said that. Do you remember how it felt sending that first email? I mean, were you scared? How was that? Yes. I just had a definite, I guess, like imposter syndrome. Yes. Because I felt like I had no idea what I'm doing. Why would anyone hire me? And so I think I had to start believing in myself, which sounds a little corny, but I think we as nurses have such a knowledge base that we just take for granted because you kind of need it every day, and you don't think about how much more you know than when you were that nursing student. And so it's important to realize that even if you don't have any writing background, you have such valuable experience, and that's worth so much more than like a journalism degree, because you will bring this to your writing, to your education, and it's things you don't even realize you're doing, but it's valuable. Totally agree, 100%. Yeah. Love it all. Thank you very much for coming on. And you're welcome. Yeah, you bet. So make sure, check out her blog, check out, you have a Facebook group as well, and just get involved, start doing something small. That first $25 is the hardest, and then you go from there. Yes, exactly. I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Carrie. I think it's going to help a lot of you realize different avenues in nursing that you might not have realized existed before, and it might open up your mind to some of the opportunities there are in nursing. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it opens your avenues and opens your mind to what's really out there. Carrie and I we chatted a lot before the episode, and we chatted a lot after, and we talked about mindset. Mindset is really what gets us where we want to go or inhibits us from getting where we need to go.
So I just really want to invite you guys to really think about your mindset. Make sure you're not inhibiting yourself. Make sure you're not stopping yourself from doing what you want to do. Carrie mentioned to me a book. It's called The Big Leap. It's a great book. It really helps you determine what your mindset is. So if you guys want some extra reading, I know you don't have any time for extra reading, but if you want an extra Audible book or something, there's the book The Big Leap and also the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I've talked a lot about that before, but you guys, your mindset is what really matters. We all can achieve so much in life, but the problem is we hold ourselves back so much. And I don't want that from you. I don't want that from our NRSNG community. I don't want you guys to be your biggest enemies. All right, we're all in this together, and we all need to build each other up, but most of all, we need to build ourselves up. All right, guys, we love you. We care about you. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, our goal is to give you the tools and the confidence that you need to succeed in nursing school, on the NCLEX, and in your life as a nurse. All right, with all that said, guys, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out and be your best self today. Happy nursing.